What up? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And look at you. You done stumbled upon little OTB Saints, where we bring you all the latest black and gold coverage.
Who are the Saints going to draft? Who's going to be their quarterback? What does the salary cap look like? All that information and more.
Hope you enjoy it. Like, subscribe. How about it, Saints fans? Mike Thomas back on the practice field. That's right, Jake. Yesterday, the media was privy to OTAs. And for the first time in this offseason program, Michael Thomas was there on the practice field. Now, apparently, he did work out Monday as well. Of course, media not allowed on Monday. He did not do full team drills, but he was there on the side. He's working Derek Carr, working Jameis Winston, catching balls out there running around. But here's the headline big news quote. This was from Michael Thomas. He talked to the media after the fact. Quote, this is Michael Thomas. I'm going to be ready for training camp, first day one, out there with the team, ready to go, full speed, just like the old days and what everyone's used to. Let's freaking go, dude. Michael Thomas saying he's going to be ready day one, full speed, no BS, no, oh, it's coming along, none of this crap. No. Our boy is finally back. And if Thomas really could find even a modicum of the old days form, right? Think about how massive that is. How rare is it to add 1,000-yard wide receiver that can catch 5 touchdowns? And Michael Thomas, that's on the low end of what he used to produce. But if you get that out of nowhere, you are a significantly better team. So let's go. Get hyped, Saints fans. Michael Thomas is back.
If he can give you 65 catches for 800 yards, that feels massive.
Feels great.
I mean, it wouldn't even be half of his best year, but still, from what he hasn't done over the last handful of seasons, but again, that's great. I love the quote. Because during this whole time, we hadn't even really heard something like that.
No, that's why that's a good point. That's why this matters. He has never been that forward.
No, and we know he was very upset with the quarterback situation over the last couple of years since Drew Brees left. But my goodness, they need him to be locked in like that, because not only for his play, but also for these young receivers to see that. Because the last thing you want to do is have your young receiver seeing your star receiver in the training room, not out there on the field. So everything to do with Mike Thomas is going to be important for the Saints team. Now, how much can they count on him? That's really going to be the question.
Yeah.
Because it's like if you plan things around Mike Thomas and then all of a sudden here it is yet again, they're pulling the football from us and he's not out there, like that's when you get into trouble as well. Like I think Chris Olave is your number one receiver.
Ooh.
You drafted him in the first round. Ooh. You moved up in the first round to select him. He's got to be your number one, because you just, at this point, you can't rely on Michael Thomas being there in November.
Wait, Taylor, I see you nodding your head in agreement there. You think Chris Olave is the number one as well in New Orleans?
Yeah, dude, I think he can do more. Like, no knock on Michael Thomas. Is Chris Olave a more complete receiver? He might actually be. I mean,
let's pump the brakes, bruh. Let's pump the brakes.
But it's not.
I feel you're saying because Thomas doesn't have the ability to take the top.
That's not even the conversation of which player is better. That's not why I say Chris Olave has got to be number one. You know Chris Olave is going to be out there. You moved up in the first round. He is a first-round talent without question, but I also think he has all-pro potential. Look at what he did just in his rookie year.
Yeah.
So that's what you have to move forward with. And then everything you get from Mike Thomas is lagniappe, because you haven't had him. What's it been? I mean, 3 seasons?
For a full season, it's been 3 full years.
I think he's played 10 games in 3 years, and it was even like a hurt 10 games. The only time he was maybe close to being healthy was at the beginning of last year before he injured that foot. And look, he had 3 touchdowns in those 2 games, right? And he had those incredible plays to come back against Atlanta in that fourth quarter, then the game that the Saints had no business winning.
I guess that's kind of my point, though. Like, at this point in Michael Thomas's career, how much are you going to get at him? Like, at this point in their careers, is Olave the guy that you can rely on more?
You're absolutely fair. Absolutely fair questions. And Michael Thomas does exist in that Zion zone where it's like mentally you've learned to prepare. Okay, you know what? I'm not going to have him. And if I do, great. Then I get an ultra talent out of nowhere. But the only other the main thing I found interesting here was his quote about being fully ready day one. Okay, that's the most bought in we've ever heard him. The other interesting part of this is that while we're talking about how he's lagniappe and he's kind of just a bonus, the Saints sound more and more like they were always all in on him and like they expected it to work. Here's the quote from Mike Thomas yesterday. I knew I was always going to be playing here. I knew I was going to be the receiver. I knew our priorities for the offseason was getting a quarterback and putting pieces around us. I was always involved. That's interesting, Jake. Because to me, that sounds, okay, first off, that sounds like Thomas was way out on Dalton and Jameis. Both of them. Didn't want to, and we kind of saw that. Remember the thank God tweet after they signed Derek Carr, all that other stuff, right? It also sounds though like the Saints and Mickey Loomis were all in on keeping Thomas at a time when we thought maybe they would be questioning, like, is he too injured? Like NFL teams hate unavailability more than any other trait in a player, right? So for the team to still be that bought into him after 3 years speaks to the potential that he once showed. And again, if he can even get back to a modicum of that, you were talking about the Saints getting a significant boost offensively.
You are. I mean, this is a player that literally won Offensive Player of the Year in the NFL.
Yeah.
He set records. I mean, things that people have never done before at the position. So, yes, I mean, that's an easy statement to make. But, one, it's not even the version that you're going to get because, like you said, like in the Falcons game last year, like that's the version that we expect to see. But it's how much of that are you actually going to get? And that's what's troublesome because it's not even a mentality thing. Some of it might be. It truly might be. We know that. But it's also, has your body failed you?
Yeah.
Like, I've seen players that their body just fails them.
The only thing that maybe changes my mind a bit in that regard is that this is one of the few situations where at least one of the seasons was due to Michael Thomas screwing up. You know, it wasn't just bad injury luck or him getting a bad break because, like, he chose not to have that surgery.
Yeah.
He chose to wait to not have surgery till right before the season. Like, he chose. Now, I don't think it was nefarious. I think his heart was in a good place. He never, like, he's been very honest, right? He screwed up. He owns it. But, like, he screwed up one of those years. So this isn't like a guy tearing his ACL, come back tearing the other ACL. Like, at least one of those years is just mismanagement. And so if you fix that, maybe the body is in a better position than we think it is. But then again, maybe not, because last year he came back and then it betrayed him once again. I mean, it remains to be seen. It's just that I don't know of too many times in my life, Jake, doing this job where I've seen an injury like that where I can clearly say this actually wasn't bad luck. This was just poorly handled.
Yeah.
That caused this.
And it was. And it feels like it's been poorly handled by a lot of different things and a lot of different people. But, you know, Michael Thomas is right there in the middle of it. And so if he can realize that, the last couple of years, like, he has some fault in it, right, wrong, or indifferent, then that's a long way for him growing and having a quote like he had yesterday. So it's one of those situations where he is so talented, he is so good that you don't want to give up on him. You want to give him every single opportunity. This feels like the last opportunity, but just to see him out there as we sit here in June, that's a very encouraging sign. But if I'm a Saints fan, I'm not getting fully excited until I see him there dressed up, lined up in the 1st of September against another NFL opponent. It's not preseason. That's not going to do anything for me either. Regular season in September, lined up, ready to go. Yeah,
I don't know that I want to see him in preseason, really. Like, I don't know. I mean, I want to see him a little bit, you know, but I don't want to.
He's got to go out there a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Knock the rust off for sure.
It could be a handful of plays, all 3 games combined.
But. Now, it's funny, though, because, like, Emil says in the chat, Olave's best football still ahead of him. Everything in Olave's profile says he's an emerging superstar. I agree. But I do go back to the quote that Thomas said, I knew I was going to be the receiver. Mike still thinks of himself as wide receiver 1.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure the front office is feeding that a little bit as well. And it seems like Derek Carr knows how to work with Mike. Like, it seems like he knows what to do as well in terms of how to talk to him, making him feel like the man.
I mean, they're both vets. I mean, so they can have a real conversation that you can't maybe have with a younger player.
True.
Younger players, I mean, your mind is everywhere. I mean, you have so many different things, and you want to make sure that you're on the same page. But with a vet, you can kind of be a little bit more harsh. You can, if he doesn't read the coverage, or if Derek Carr doesn't read the coverage, right, Michael Thomas, like, you can have those conversations, and feelings don't get really involved a lot of the time because you're like, hey, man, you've played a decade in the league. I've played 8 years in the league. Like, let's figure this out.
God, it's crazy that you talk about being a vet. This is going to be year 8 for Mike Thomas. Makes you feel kind of old. Wow, just amazing black and gold takes right there, Jake.
I don't think I've ever heard any takes that are better than the 2 guys that just gave you that take.
And you can keep getting them by going ahead and liking, subscribing, ringing the bell to get notifications when we post. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next OTB Saints.